unfortunately, as a Broncos fan, let's jump on this next segment. Now, you brought this one to the table, Michaela, but I'll start off as a Broncos fan here. Whew. Now, this is recorded on a Wednesday, and the funny thing is there's so much happening here every week with Nathaniel Hackett. This is a segment or a preview on the Ravens and the Broncos, but realistically, could this be Hackett's last game in charge of the Broncos? And I think that's a relative statement to have. And I said this on a previous podcast this evening with a couple of Broncos mates saying that the Broncos are due a blowout loss here at some point, and they should have had it before the London game. They didn't, and they haven't won a game since. And I think that if you look at the way in which the Ravens lost against the Jaguars last week, and some of the drop passes that were dropped in the red zone by the Ravens wide receiver tight end core, I really think that the Broncos could be in for a drubbing this week. If it does happen, it makes you think, Mark, is this the end of Nathaniel Hackett, or do you think the Broncos are in a situation where they're just going to get to the end of the season? We are getting closer to that point now, so for the sake of 4 or 5 games, is there any point? But I think we can all agree, well, for me anyway, I'm taking the Ravens this weekend, but there's too much going on. You got the whole Mike Purcell, Russell Wilson situation, reports of Russell Wilson losing the locker room, reports as of the time of this recording that Russell Wilson had half the team at his birthday party yesterday. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm getting sick of this. And as a lad that was sitting saying, let's ride for the crack in April with all these Broncos memes, I've got 3 Russell Wilson jerseys in my room next door to me here. So I'm really disappointed, but I'd like Hackett to go. I would expect him to be fired. I think any normal team would fire him. He was in that job before the Walton Penner family took over. Do you think he could lose his job this weekend? And look, the Ravens are going to be going all for Levermark this weekend against the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't know. When do you fire an NFL coach? I just think it's difficult. I definitely think he's getting fired, unless we want to refer back to our Aaron Rodgers talk and say, oh, is there someone else that you have your eye on and you want to bring in to test out as the head coach? But even look at the job Rich Bisaccia did with the Las Vegas Raiders last year, and it didn't work out for him. So unless there's someone that you can elevate, look, it's been absolutely miserable. There's no fixing it now through the rest of the year. And what's bringing someone in for a win? What's it even worth at this point? I suppose the indictment is Melvin Gordon. Obviously, I know you as a Broncos fan would know all about his fumbles, and eventually that is what got him waived last week. But I think there's no way out of this. It is going to take a whole off season. So what's the point of 5 games? At least at the moment, you're able to, unfortunately, you throw Nathaniel Hackett under the bus, and the team can kind of keep some kind of cohesion, because the skeleton of that whole team is going to remain next year. So it's you don't need to be, losing your head coach that you can, scapegoat, and, it falling on Russell Wilson's shoulders, and then it creates further divides. So I don't know is the answer, because I'm the exact same as a Cardinals fan. I'm expecting news on Cliff Kingsbury, but I think that the owners will want to remain level-headed and do this on Black Monday come January. Unless there's no getting a foot up on the head coaching carousel. And I'm going to save that conversation for another day, because it really is one. Who are the future head coaches? They're all going to be tied up in the playoffs anyway.
Michaela, what's the Republic of Ireland or sovereign equivalent of a P45? Because in the north we get a P45 when you get fired, and I think that Hackett could have a P45 this weekend.
I hope the Irish aren't going to kill me. It is a P45 here.
It probably is. I mean, it's just,
thank gosh. Is it a P45? It is. No, I know. We always say that.
Never got one.
Obviously not. I'm so good at my job. I never get P45s. Yeah, no, I think this could potentially be Hackett's last rodeo. But I think, look at it. I think something to say though. I think Wilson is a lot to blame for the performance, and not just Hackett, because I think Wilson is similar to Aaron Rodgers, is that he brings drama to wherever he kind of goes. If you look at the Seahawks willingly traded Russell Wilson and kept Pete Carroll, and I remember hearing that Pete wanted a run heavy offense, and obviously that didn't really suit Russell Wilson, because everyone's let Russ cook and all this stuff. But if you look at the Seahawks, they stuck with their head coach over the quarterback, and he went to the Broncos, and now they're failing miserably. But I think the one thing I never liked about Wilson was that he seems to care more about his own image rather than winning. Obviously, I don't think that was the case when he won his first Super Bowl, but I think as he's gone on and kind of won the Walter Payton Award, he's kind of more about his legacy. I've heard people say that before. He cares about his legacy a lot. But one thing I think of, if the Broncos, say, traded for Baker Mayfield when he was on the trade block, would Hackett be considerably getting the boots? Like, he's only a year into his role, so if he had gone with, say, Baker Mayfield over Russell Wilson, or the Broncos had gone for some kind of not average quarterback, but someone who doesn't have a big basically star as Russell Wilson, because he's obviously a star in the NFL. Well, I would say was at this point. But if Hackett had a quarterback like Mayfield and they were in this position, would Hackett possibly get another year? Be like, okay, we didn't trade for the best quarterback, so maybe Baker wasn't really playing well anyway, so maybe it is kind of more the quarterback's fault. And I do actually think that if Hackett had gotten someone like Mayfield or someone like Jimmy G or something like that, he would have potentially had another year. But just because Russell is so big, I do think Hackett, I think if it's a blowout to the Ravens, I think he should be gone.
Yeah, I'd love to know your opinion on this, Michael, because there's been a serious amount of change at the head coaching position with the Denver Broncos out of the last few years. Obviously, Vic Fangio was the most recent one before Nathaniel Hackett.
Vance Joseph, who's with you guys now in the Cardinals. Yeah.
Who, and I think actually Vance Joseph is running an excellent defense, and everyone knows that Vic Fangio is all about his defense. If you were to have one back, but it's like, are these the rawest feelings you've had about the head coach, that it's like he is the one that you definitely would not have back?
Yeah, and I was actually going to come back to what Michaela said there. So to even interlink it here, I agree. I do think Russell Wilson is not the player he was. I think that team he had with the Seahawks that won the Super Bowl was era-defining, incredible team to watch on both sides of the ball, even on special teams, for God's sake. But Hackett was brought in to get Aaron Rodgers, and it's quite clear that he's out of his depth. Like, I've seen it in person in London. The man couldn't string a sentence together at some points. Like, it was awful to watch. Like, the silence in the locker room, or not the locker room, the silence in the press room whenever he was trying to explain something was like, lads, like, this is insane. Like, this guy's an NFL head coach. That being said, I fully agree. I think Russell Wilson brings a lot of sort of more eyes to the conversation, maybe outside of an NFL world, and maybe too much pressure on certain players. And there was a high level of expectation this year for this team. He has not performed to the level. I do believe that they need to get somebody in that's worked with him before, or has worked with him in an offense that he feels more comfortable with, because it's not working. I do genuinely believe that if the Broncos do have to get a new head coach this offseason, that they need to go for somebody with experience of being in a head coaching position that has worked relatively well. Would I say somebody like Dan Quinn? I don't know, but I do not want the Broncos going out and getting the rookie head coach again. They need to bring somebody in that's going to benefit Russell Wilson, and there is no reason why Wilson can't take 6 to 8 months here after the season, work with somebody and become a better player, because he's got it in him. It's just about trying to find that whole different situation. Sure, half the coaching staff in the team at the minute are either in their first job or they were in high school jobs 2 years ago. It's messed up, so it's pretty crazy. And you can tell by the way I'm talking about this that I could just talk about this all day. So I'm just going to move on. Take the counter sort of situation here.